Hey everyone, and welcome to EverydayFI, where we explore the lives of everyday people pursuing financial independence. I'm your host, Meghan Combs, and I'm here to show you that you do not need $1 million book deal or a famous blog to reach financial independence early. By talking with real humans, you'll see how you can forge your own path to financial freedom the everyday way. In part one of today's episode, I get to connect with Amanda, who discusses her life in the Shenandoah Valley, her marriage, and recent motherhood. She shares her path to financial independence, starting with paying off debt, inspired by Dave Ramsey, and then discovering the FI community through Choose FI. We explore Amanda's career pivot to data analytics, the role of a financial planner, and how having a child has shifted her FI goals to focus more on enjoying the present. Additionally, Amanda and I bond over our shared experience of growing up feeling like we needed to make ourselves smaller and the lifelong impact of that mindset. Tune in to hear Amanda's full story after a word from our sponsors. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today, I'm going to be talking to my friend Amanda, who I have been trying to get on the podcast for a few months now. We've had to reschedule a couple of times, which is totally fine. For any future guests, by the way, I'm totally fine with canceling and rescheduling, even if it's last minute. I'm a canceled plans type of gal, so it's all good. But yeah, hey, Amanda, nice to meet you. And thanks for coming on the show. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you for bearing with me while we first dealt with power outage with the remnants of Hurricane Helene. That was cancellation number 1. And then cancellation number 2 was, oh God, I have a 2-month-old. I'm not ready for this, but I need another week. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we're finally doing this, and I appreciate your patience.
Of course. Yeah. I don't have a newborn yet, but I can't imagine. I feel, and that's way more important than a podcast. So for sure.
I will say, being on the podcast and having listened to your recent episodes and having listened to your early episode that you recorded at Camp FI in 2024, I just want to say you've improved. I love
Yay.
at Camp FI, we didn't get to meet, so I didn't get to tell you this, but I love seeing people start things and seeing people know that they're going to have to just get better at things and embracing that. And so I knew from that first episode, I was like, this is going to be a good podcast. She's going to work out the kinks, and this is going to be a good podcast. And now listening to more recent ones, I'm like, way to go, Megan.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet. Yeah, I definitely was bumbling around in the beginning. I feel like I'm still a little bumbling around, especially with the direction I want to take the show. But thank you so much. That's so sweet. I didn't even know you were at Camp FI. I'm sorry I didn't meet you there. There's so many people. Are you going to the one in Spain at all? Probably not with a newborn.
No, I wish.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I'm not going to the Mid-Atlantic this year because I'm going to the Spain one, but hopefully in a future we will meet, because you're in the Shenandoah area of Virginia, right? Yeah. And I'll definitely make sure to meet you in the future at another Camp FI.
Yeah, I think we'll cross paths. All the FI folks tend to percolate around the same places.
Yeah, one of my dreams is to be more like Keith, who travels around the country just visiting all his FI friends and going to all the FI events now that he's completely retired and just lives off his rental income, which, by the way, y'all, Keith was in a previous episode of mine, in episode 20, if you all want to go back and listen to his episode. But yeah, he travels around and visits all his friends, and that's goals for me. And what's cool is Chris, my partner, actually now fiance, I need to start saying fiance. He has a lot of climbing buddies around the country who are also in similar areas like Colorado. That's one of our goals in life. But I digress. I want to know more about you, Amanda. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell me about what's your life like now? How close are you to FI? What your career journey has been like, or whatever you want to share.
Yeah, so I am Virginia born and raised, though I've lived a few other places in adulthood. But like you said, currently in the beautiful Shenandoah Valley area. I am married, going on 4.5 years with my wife. And as aforementioned, 2-month-old now in the picture. For those who did meet me at Camp FI, it's all I talked about. So I apologize for that. And maybe I'll be a little more multidimensional at my next Camp FI. I was very, very excited. So it's a dream having him. And FI wise, let's see, I'd say we're about 3 years out from Coast FI, having gotten on the journey in 2019. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But we're at a point of kind of starting to feel the fruits of our labor of the past 5 years, feeling a greater sense of stability that we can weather challenges and emergencies better than before, and feeling a little bolder when it comes to how we approach work. I guess we feel that we have more leverage to build the life we want and make work a part of that life and not the thing that dominates it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's one of those goals that we all have, right? Where it's not that we don't want to work, we want to choose the kind of work we want to have
Mhm.
and not be beholden to a boss if we don't want to be. I like how brave being financially independent makes us, and even being Coast Fi still makes you pretty brave. Like, I see personally, I'm on the Coast Fi journey as well, and I've realized recently, and maybe other people are like, duh, Megan, but I realized that there's two sides of it where it's getting your retirement amount to a place where if you no longer contributed, you would have enough for traditional retirement. Yes, that's one aspect. But the other side of it is also getting your lifestyle down to where a lower paying job could sustain you. And that is the part that I haven't reached yet. Like, our life is actually more expensive than I would rather it be. Our retirement amounts are good to go and probably wouldn't necessarily need to have more going in there. We are more in there. But yeah, that's like the dream right there, CoastFi, is being able to take those lower paying jobs. So yeah, I'm right there with you. And speaking of jobs, what do you and your wife do?
Yes, I am a data analyst. I actually pivoted into that career a couple of years ago successfully. That would be one of my tips for those looking for a flexible, high demand career. I just did a Coursera.com certificate, or I believe it's Coursera.org, actually. I did a Coursera.org data analytics certificate and am enjoying that a lot. I'm a contractor with the federal government. My wife is grants administrator for a nonprofit back in Minnesota, which is where we met.
Okay, I have so many questions. So let's go. It could take us off into different directions here. I'm going to start with the career one. What career did you pivot to data analyst from?
Yes, I was a title searcher. So anytime there's a real estate transaction and someone buys or sells property, there are folks who search the title. It's basically like legal research, and they make sure that there's nothing crazy on the property. Does someone actually have a loan on it that you don't know about? Or is there a gas pipeline running across the front yard that no one knows about? So it's just research on a property and make sure that it is kosher to sell and buy. So I was doing that, and it was a really flexible job. I basically got to set my own schedule. It was a company I'd worked with off and on since I was out of college, but for one thing was not sustainable to be tied to the housing market. When the housing market was low, there was not much work to do and I was not getting paid well. So there was that, and then just feeling like I was ready to, after a period of needing to rest and retinker how I was looking at my professional career and my definitions of achievement and success, I felt ready to level up and get in something more stable and something that would contribute to our FI journey more.
Yeah. And what made you choose data analytics?
I've always liked numbers. I was a math minor in college, and I worked some in research in a collegiate setting prior to the title searching. So it was a pretty natural fit for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, I think all of us in the FI community love numbers in one fashion or another. So, yeah, that fits. Cool. And then what does your wife do?
He is a grants administrator for a
Right.
nonprofit back in
Right.
Minnesota where we met.
Okay. Okay. And so the other question that I wanted to ask you a few minutes back that I said could go on a different tangent is about how you met your wife in Minnesota. Because you said you were born and raised in Virginia. Were you like living in Minnesota at the time, or what's that story? Like, how'd y'all meet?
Yeah, right out of college, I moved to the Richmond area in Virginia and was looking for a research job and finally got an opportunity about 7 months later. Never thought of moving to Minnesota, but that's where the job was. And I said, sure. And as it turns out, Duluth, Minnesota is a fantastic place to live. And yes, I met my beautiful wife, lived there for a few years. I miss the Minnesota winters, believe it or not. So I'm really enjoying the snow that we have right now.
I will probably be one of the few people who understand that because I spent a lot of holidays in Colorado where we had a lot of snow. And here, I mean, I am like, wow, we have snow. I still have a little bit of icy snow in my driveway here in Durham, North Carolina. And it just makes me happy looking at it every day.
Me too. Give me a good stiff winter. I love it.
Yeah, it's just so cozy because you just cozy up. And then winter sports are fun, like snowboarding, skiing, snowshoeing, cross country.
Mhm.
I love all that stuff. I'm weird. Snow fights. I don't know. I like it. And I hope I'm not misquoting because I always get my semi co-host Mitch and my boss where they live mixed up, but I'm pretty sure Mitch lives in Minnesota, so he's gonna love that we're talking up Minnesota and Lebanon the winters. Mitch, this one's for you. I'm gonna have to double check that and cut all of that if he's actually living in North Dakota or South Dakota, which I think is actually my boss lives there. I get those mixed up because
Then he'll just be offended.
I know. Yeah. I get all of those mixed up because I'm like, it's the Midwest. It's not all one state. I don't know. That's awesome. That's so cool. So, how long did you live in Minnesota and what brought you back to the Virginia area?
I lived in Minnesota for 3 years. It was a wonderful place to live, but I was a homesick little puppy. So I just wanted to be back closer to family in Virginia. And thankfully, we were able to shift jobs back over to this side of the country.
Nice. And how does your wife enjoy Virginia? Was she from Minnesota or where's she from?
No, she's moved around a bit. She's originally from Canada, and most of her extended family is still in Canada, though her nuclear family are all in the States. So she was open to the idea of being close to family. She grew up near lots of cousins and stuff, and we both wanted that for our kids.
Yeah, that's so nice when you don't have to like travel too far to see family so you can see them more often. I'm missing that right now because a big swath of my family are either in Colorado, Montana, or Texas.
Mhm.
And that's just like pretty far from North Carolina. And the only family who live in North Carolina is my mom, which we're close. That's only one family member. So I hear you. I wish we could live closer. And I know my family in Colorado are like convince Chris and I to move out there, but it's just so expensive. Like, you can't, it's so hard to have the same FI dream if you want to go live like in Boulder.
Yes,
Where the
absolutely.
average house price is $800,000, which is double what I paid for my house. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's an
yeah, it's intense. Yeah. And that's actually one question I have. Did you do any sort of I know your family's in Virginia, but Minnesota and Virginia are famous for being low cost of living housing. Is that helping you along where you live now? Is that helping you with your FI journey, would you say?
I think it definitely is. When we moved back to Virginia, we thought we would move into Charlottesville, a college town, trendy. We were priced out in the blink of an eye. So we wound up in a much more affordable area. And I think that makes a huge difference, especially since we've gotten to catch some of that housing market upswing that happened in 2021. I think it helps a lot to obviously we're not relying on our home as like a huge chunk of our portfolio, but it's a big help to not be housing enormous amounts of money in housing alone.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm very familiar with Charlottesville because the company I used to work at, their headquarters is there. Willow Tree. Does that ring a bell for you? Probably not.
No.
It's like a
Are
software
they like
company.
education?
No, they're
So-
software.
Okay.
No. So they're like a software agency. So they have a lot of
Hmm.
clients that they build stuff for.
Okay.
It's totally fine. They're at the Woolen Mills like
Mm.
campus. It's
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a really good friend who lives in Charlottesville too. And he lives on like a farm, like a legit farm with a barn and barn cats and like barn animals and like an old 1800s house. And he gave me a tour one time of it, and I was like, stop making me jealous, because he just lives like on all this land. And they don't have any neighbors, but they're pretty close to Charlottesville. Like he said, like a 20 to 30-minute drive. And I was
Mhm.
like, that's a dream, man. Like, you should move up here. I'm like, all right, it's okay. Yeah, that's cool. Cool. Okay. So we touched that your family and you were from Virginia. So let's dive into like your money origin story that started
Mhm.
in Virginia. So what's one of your earliest money memories?
My earliest one is probably after working in tobacco. I grew up on a tobacco farm, getting handed a very official looking check. And just getting handed a check as an 8, 9-year old was super exciting. It was in the equally super exciting amount of $20. And I don't know what inflation has been like, but I suspect that $20 for about 8 hours of work in 2002 was not shouldn't pay, and I should have been negotiating for more with my father. But it was very exciting getting paid for my work and going to the bank and signing my check and put it in my savings account. So that's my earliest money memory. In terms of family, we had land. I think my family was the classic example of being land rich and cash poor. Money was presented as an inevitable stressor that there's just no way around it. It's always going to be stressful in your life. Finding FI many years later was such a relief that it didn't always have to be that way. Of course, things come up now and then, but I think I feel a lot more relief now than I saw my parents have when I was growing up.
Yeah, yeah, that's intense. What kind of stressors did they go through specifically? Do you remember any of those?
I remember they always owed on taxes. They're always paying back the prior year's taxes when this year's tax day was coming around. I remember hearing those conversations, taking out lots of loans against the land they owned to make ends meet here or there. I was the second of 5 kids, and if you're into birth order theory at all, there's a bigger age gap between me and the older ones. So I was a pseudo oldest child. So I think I was really plugged into these things, and my reaction as the responsible pseudo eldest child was to try and need as little as possible so that I was not an added stressor. I wouldn't get snacks at the grocery store checkout aisle when my younger siblings would, or when I was older as a teenager playing travel basketball, each tournament, there'd be an appreciable cost associated with each tournament for the hotel and the registration fees and all that. So my coach would say, okay, this upcoming tournament in Greensboro, it's going to cost 275. And I go back to my parents and say, it costs 175. And I wouldn't tell them that I was paying for the rest out of my own work money. So I think that has definitely translated into adulthood. I've had to learn how to let myself need things and that it's okay. I don't have to make myself really small. So it lends itself to frugality, but doesn't lend itself to a healthy money mindset.
So I feel like I'm looking in the mirror because I am the youngest daughter, but I didn't live with any of my older siblings. I was the oldest in the household that I lived in. And so I was the pseudo eldest as well. And then my mom was a single parent. And so both me and my brother were kind of seen as burdens because it was hard being a single mom and like having to work and support 2 kids. And she didn't get any child support either, which didn't help. And yeah, I think when I was younger, I also did the I don't want to be a burden type of thing that has
Mhm.
followed me into adulthood. So, hi, my name's Megan. Are you also Megan? No. So it's, yeah, I completely see you. And I'm curious, like you said, it follows you into adulthood. Are there any instances, like some examples that you can think of that really stand out where you're like, oh, yep, that's my childhood money story coming to play, or anything you can think of there?
Yeah, I can think of plenty of examples. It's just, I feel like there's a little speed bump I have to get over anytime I want to buy something for myself. I don't buy a lot of things for myself, so it shouldn't be this big of a mental deal. I remember buying a used kayak one time, bought it off Craigslist, $100, I think, 100, 120, something like that. I love to paddle. So it was a great purchase, a really cheap price for something that I would really enjoy using a lot. But I think I don't know if it's shame or just my aversion to spending money on myself in that case manifested as delaying telling my then fiance at the time, delaying. And then suddenly there's a kayak in our yard. And she's like, why didn't you just tell me about this sooner? Like, why were you being secretive? And I wasn't trying to be secretive. It was just really hard to admit that I bought something for myself and I don't know, that I felt I needed to seek permission for it. So that's one way where I think it manifests is just trying to really avoid staking my claim on something. But in a larger sense, I think feeling like a burden played out in our marriage years ago where it became about more than money. It was just about bottling up any negative feelings. I can't let any negative feelings out because she's already going through a hard time. I'm going to just keep it all inside. Spoiler alert, that didn't work. And thankfully, things are a lot better now. We've both learned we can't view ourselves as burdens. And that has helped a lot. And I think that's trickled over into my money mindset to just, again, to help me stake my claim on things a little more and not feel that it's a problem to want things.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like a tricky thing to, you kind of have to practice it over and over and over again because those inner dialogues from your childhood can keep coming up and say, oh, don't take up too much space. You got to leave space for other people because if you take up too much space, they won't have any space and then you'll become a burden and you don't want to be a burden. And being a burden is bad. And being a burden means you're not going to be loved. And it's just like a cycle. I don't know. That's how my brain works. But yeah, it's like a cycle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that it's a give and take, right? Because there are some people who take up so much space that they don't leave room for anybody else. And you don't want to be that. But it's also the way I see it. And I don't know if this is how you and your wife work through this, but it's something that I've had to work on too, where Chris and I tend to have like sessions where we talk things out. And like a lot of times we'll use tools like games or chapters in books or things like that to talk through certain things. For example, I just went to Ramit Sethi's like live Money for Couples event a couple weekends ago in DC. And I got his book and I was flipping through it and I saw a chapter on like how to talk about money with your partner. And I was like, hey, Chris, let's like do one of these exercises. There was 4. And I was like, let's just do one. And so it got us talking. And what I noticed when we do that is that Chris will talk for a solid 10 minutes and I'll talk for 30 seconds. And I'm like, I need to stop doing that. And it's funny because I started resenting him for talking so much, but I'm like, no, that's on me. Like, I can't resent him for that because that's my own perception of don't be a burden going on him. And I'm like, no. You need to talk more. You need to talk more. I don't know if that's something that you saw in your dialogue with your wife at all, but like it helped me to say, if I talk more, I'm sharing more and we're creating a deeper connection. That's how I kind of like tried to trick myself into doing it. So how did y'all get past that?
Yeah. What you just said is a really clever way to do it. It's funny though, because socially, conversationally, I'm the Chris. I'm the one who can just go on and on and on. I went to some work conference once where someone leading into a group discussion invited those who tend to step forward and talk to step back. And for those who hang back, invited them to step forward. So I definitely have to invite myself to step back and let my wife and others take up the conversational airspace. But when it comes to money things, I have employed a similar strategy of telling myself that when I stake a claim to something that I want, it's revealing my true self and it's giving a chance to be accepted and be loved and to achieve greater intimacy.
Yeah. And that greater intimacy leads to that deeper connection and just a better relationship, right? And a better communication, which is like the foundation of a marriage lasting forever. If you can see it in that way, you're not a burden. You're basically creating the perfect relationship. No, let's not say perfect. There's never a perfect, but you're creating like the ideal relationship for you and your partner, right? Almost all partners want you to share. They want to know more about you. That's why they're with you, right? They
Yep.
want to know you, and they can't know you if you hold back. And it's so funny that you said that you're the person who stands up and talk. I do the same thing. Like between me and Chris, like I talk for 30 seconds, but when I'm in a group and they're like, who wants to speak? I'm like, I'm definitely the Hermione. So it's so weird. So like I have to be the person to be like, and I wonder if it's like, I don't know. For me, I'm like, I want to be accepted and loved. And I don't know. Anyway, I love this talk. I could talk about this all day, but people are probably like, what is this, a therapy session? Are there any other thoughts that you wanted to have before we move on to another topic?
I need to know if Hermione is your favorite character, because if she is, we are the same person.
So she's my second favorite. I will say Dumbledore from the books is my favorite character.
Okay,
So,
that's
yeah.
fair. That's
But I love me some Hermione, especially when she punched Malfoy.
fair.
Yes, queen, sis, get it. So I actually have a Harry Potter tattoo. So just for everybody
Love
to
it.
know, I love it. This was also just a note before J.K. Rowling became a butthole. I'm trying to separate the art from the artist and still trying to love the stories without loving the author. If people don't know what I'm talking about, just Google J.K. Rowling and transgender opinions.
That's
She
for a
doesn't
whole
have,
other podcast.
yeah, a whole other podcast. But he, yeah, said some stuff that kind of sucks. Yeah, cool. So I want to know more about your financial independence journey. So you said you came to it in 2019. Again, me too. Stop copying me, Amanda. What drew you to the movement? Was there a specific like influencer or a person in the community? I shouldn't say influencer, a person in the community that you resonated with? Was there somebody like a friend or family member who showed it to you? Like, how did you come to this movement, this
Mhm.
community?
I came through the fairly typical Dave Ramsey pipeline, where my wife was the first one to say, "Hey, I was listening to this guy on the radio, and I think we should do something about our debt." And I said, "Oh, I don't know. The debt's never bothered me, but if you say so." We paid off about $30,000 in debt in a little over a year, I think. We went pretty hard on it. He really instills that
Yeah.
like a Zell mindset and all that stuff.
That's
And then
amazing. I just have to pause you because that's congratulations, applause, good job. Like, how do you feel about that now? Are you still like thumbs up about that debt payoff, or do you have different ideas about it now that you know a little bit more than what Dave Ramsey teaches? I'm always curious when people say, "Oh, I paid off all this debt because of Dave Ramsey," but now I know other things. So
mm,
that's why I'm
yeah,
asking the
a
question.
mortgage wasn't in the picture then, so I have a pretty uncomplicated and positive view of the baby steps, the debt snowball. Ours was mostly credit card debt, a couple car loans, small amount of medical debt. So yeah, no, getting all that out of our lives was great. But once you get to the end of the baby steps, it's okay, what now? I'm like on fire. I'm debt free. I have all this expendable income I didn't have before. What now? So that's when I found the Choose FI podcast. And now it was my turn to go to my wife and say, "Hey, I think we really need to get into investing and we can retire when we're 45 and we're not going that hard." She moderated me and said, "I don't know, I kind of working. I don't want to retire at 45." And so now we're in a nice kind of slow fi pace.
Yeah, I like the idea of slow fi. I hope that is one of the, what would you call like coast fi and fat fire? What would you call that? One of the flavors of fi, one of
I
like
like that. Yeah.
Chad's flavors. Yeah. So I hope slow fi becomes one of the flavors of fi. Oh my gosh, that's like a tongue twister though. We'll talk about. Let me say that again. I hope that slow fi becomes one of the flavors of fi. Sorry, I'm laughing, y'all, because it's such a tongue twister. I had to say at least 3 times. Yeah, no, I love that. I want to know why your wife wanted to pay off the debt. Like, why was she worried about the debt? What about Dave Ramsey kind of lit a fire in her? And how did she bring you along? What were her kind of tactics there?
Mm, that's a great question. From my perspective, it seemed rather sudden. Like, we knew the debt was there, we knew it wasn't ideal, but we weren't really worried about it. So I don't know what about his manner really lit the fire under her. Again, he's very persuasive and very, very passionate in his ideals. And so I suppose it worked for her. And as for how she got me on board, I think something that we did early in our relationship that had primed the pump for a journey like this was reading the Gottman's 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. We were not married at the time, but it's a really excellent book. One of the sections is about your partner's influence. And even if you're not really keen on something they're saying, hearing them out. And so I think that's what laid a good foundation when she comes to me and says, we should pay off all this debt. I would, well, I'll listen. And then later down the road when we're debt free and all that, and I don't know, something I proposed was, hey, I think we should just share one car, not have 2 cars between us. She wasn't crazy about that at first, but she heard me out and was willing to give it a try. I think the principles in that book kept us open-minded through the journey.
Yeah, that's a great book. I'm actually very curious about that because Chris and I are getting married this year and I want our marriage to work forever. So yeah, thanks for that. I'm definitely going to pick it up and read. We actually have one of our friends gifted us a book called, it's either The 8 Dates or 8 Dates book. I haven't actually read it yet, but she was like, it saved my marriage. Now,
Wow.
our marriage was in turmoil at the time. So I don't know if this book is specifically for that. It sounds like it is, but if you're like in a marriage and you're in turmoil, this 8 Dates book apparently is really awesome. It's basically 8 different dates and you have activities and discussion points on each date, but you're like on a date. So you're also having fun and drinking wine and whatever. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there as well for anybody who might want another book to make their marriage last forever. So that's awesome. And it's awesome that
Yeah.
you were so open as well. I love that. Is that like,
Yeah.
would you quantify that? Is that how you are as a person? Or is that something that you had to learn and you learned?
I'd say that's how I am. I'm naturally pretty easygoing and open-minded.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. And so, what about the FI movement itself attracted you versus some other financial community? Because there's a lot of different ones, right? You could go with Farnoosh Torabi's So Money. You could go with Money with Katie, who is part of the FI movement, right? She's got her own flavor of it. And then we've got Jean Chatsky with her money, who's a little bit more traditional with her advice, the 15% going into retirement type of stuff.
Mhm.
So, what attracted you to financial independence and who was that person? Like, was it Mr. Money Mustache? Was it Choose FI? Was it Paula Pant? Was it any of those people who brought you into the movement?
Yeah, Choose FI. After Dave Ramsey, it was getting hooked on the Choose FI podcast. And what attracted me to FI at first was the retirement. Once again, I think I was on a typical path where that's what it was all about for me in the beginning. As time progressed and I got a healthier relationship with work and kind of was able to take more ownership of work, that part was less salient for me and it was more the lifestyle. And yes, long term, it'll be nice to be retired, but that's so far away and there's so much life to live between now and then that it really became about time freedom eventually. But in the beginning, I was all about great. I want to save lots of money so I don't have to work again.
What did that beginning look like with your savings and how did it shift over time, would you say?
We definitely make more now than we used to. So I think same story that you always hear, our expenses have gone up too. I think we're a lot more automated now than we used to be. Choose FI folks, they preach about automation. We have money going obviously into our brokerage accounts, into investments, but also more recently, we've finally gotten the 6-month emergency fund built up. And that was largely built up through just automatically putting some out of our paychecks each month. So, yeah, I think we have to think about it a lot less than we used to.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you have a target savings rate when you first found the 5 movement? Did you want to be like, I want to be 50, 60, 70% savings rate? And now it's like back down a little bit?
I never had a target savings rate, though I admire those folks who are in that 60% range. I'd had a sort of arbitrary goal that I thought it'd be cool if we got 100,000 invested in index funds, mutual funds, whatever, by the time we were 30. Totally arbitrary, just nice numbers that would give us a good start going into our 30s. And thankfully, we were able to achieve that, let's see, 6 months before the first of us turned 30. So, with plenty of time to spare, we were able to achieve that.
That's awesome. Yay. Congratulations.
Thanks.
They say that first 100 is like the hardest one to get to. And then
Oh my
it
gosh,
goes,
it really is.
yeah, it is. Yeah. And
It crawls in the beginning.
so crawls. I think it's a combination of you're making less in the beginning. And at least for me, I didn't start contributing to retirement accounts or investment accounts until I was 28. Like I was almost
Mhm.
30. And it took me like 7 to 8 years to get to that 100 mark. And now I'm almost at 200. And I got that 100 mark last year. It was like a
Wow.
year and a half ago. And now I'm almost at 200. Seriously. But I make so much more now.
Mhm.
I think it's A, it's invested, so it's growing faster. And B, I'm also like shoving more in there. It's funny because people say, what's the percentage rate? And I'm like, I don't look at it like that because my percentage savings is lower, but the amount is higher than it used to
Mhm.
be because I make more. So I don't know how to answer this question when people ask me like, what are you targeting? Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm getting off on a tangent, but I like that you said that retirement, like the R is what attracted you first. Me too. I was like, I don't have to work. Yeah, sign me up. And it's so funny because Justin in episode 3 actually said, this is why we need the RE because yes, once you get over that initial fire of being in the movement, yeah, I'm going to slash all my expenses and I'm going to save up the money and I'm going to quit work and flip off my boss. Once we calm down with that and actually like start living an intentional life, like that's when the FI is. But you're bringing people to this community with the RE a lot of the time because people aren't in that first, like that more elevated mindset or that more, what do the Buddhists say, enlightened mindset of, I'm going to live my life intentionally. Like you're not there yet. And so you need that draw of that hook of the retire early, stop working when you're 30. And I agree with him because you and I are examples. We got brought into that movement, this movement because of the RE. And even though that's not necessarily our goal now, it is what hooked us. So what do you think about that?
I totally agree. I love how Justin described it because it really is like a kid on a sugar rush in the beginning. And then once the sugar gets out of your system, you realize that FI is an eventuality. If you're doing things right, it's going to happen. And it's just a function of time. You can't make time go faster. Who would want to make time go faster? That would be a grave error. So that's when I realized, oh, okay, this is going to happen. So in a metaphysical sort of way, it's like I'm almost FI right now. I'm not. I can't quit my job, but it's like it's gonna happen. It's just in this future time that I can't access. So now I just have to worry about living the FI life and the lifestyle and like lifestyle design and all that good stuff.
Yeah. And I would propose that the lifestyle design and the intentional living is what being FI is. I don't even think that you have to be able to quit your job because technically you are able to quit your job because you can like, and I don't mean stop working. I just mean you now, because you're living your life intentionally and understand what your values are, you can leave a job that no longer serves you for a different, better job, right? Because
Mhm.
I feel like when you're in this community and you're thinking this way, you start to break down those boxes that maybe you've put yourself into or society's put you into that you're like, I have to stay at this job because what if there isn't another job? What if the other job that I get isn't great? Now, I've only been here for a year. And what if I have all these jumps on my resume, blah, blah. A lot of that gets broken down because you're like, no, this isn't meeting with my vision of my FI life. So I'm going to move on to something else that serves that vision better. So what I'm curious about is what path you chose to reach your FI number. Are you like solely in index funds? Do you have some real estate investments? Do you have something else you're trying?
We're mostly in index funds right now. Of course, do own a house, but it, we view it more as a savings account more so than a investment vehicle. If it's a good year, it's a good year, but we don't count on that year to year when it comes to real estate. We might dabble in real estate. I take that back. I don't think we will. Now that we have a kid in the picture, I think we're just going to be index funds all the way. One of our current considerations is whether we want to stick with a financial planner that we currently have. It's nice to not have to do all the technical things on our own. And we like him, but we don't know if the value is worth it for what we're paying. So I think that's something that'll be a consideration of ours going forward.
Yeah. And this show sometimes comes across as like the anti financial planner show, but I'm not. I feel like they can be super valuable sometimes. But I'm curious, so is it somebody who is a fee, like he takes a fee from your investments and he chooses them for you? Or is he like you talk to him for an hour and then pay a one time fee and then that's it?
The way his system is set up is under a certain amount, it's just a flat fee every quarter. But we're now approaching that limit where it switches over and it'll be a percentage that he takes. So that, I don't know, makes us think twice.
Yeah. And I guess what things do you think he's doing that you don't want to do yourself or don't think you can do yourself? I'm just curious, like, what magic do you think he's doing behind the scenes?
I like the way you put that. I think the picking does intimidate me a bit, even though I know that you just pick something, the broad based, chart the S&P 500, and you're not going to come off too poorly. So I know in my head that I can probably do it, but it's another thing to let go of the security blanket. He feels like a security blanket. To a lesser extent, he was also really helpful when my wife was setting up a business and all the legal stuff around setting up an S corp. But none of that really applies anymore. The business kind of ran its course, served its purpose. So it's really just the picking of funds that we use him for now. That and our semi-annual pep talks with him. We just love seeing the number go up every time we talk to him. But we can pep talk ourselves, can't we?
Yeah, you just put it in something like, oh, what's that one that everybody uses that is now like it called Empower now or something, but it used to be something else. But anyway, you can track your net worth and you just look at it every quarter and you're like, look at the number going up. Woo. Don't look at it daily like I do because that's like
No,
the market
no.
going down. I'm like, oh man, that's no, don't do that. But yeah, I get it. It makes me wonder. Sometimes people are very black and white. Either the guy's helpful or he's not helpful, so just fire him. But I'm wondering if he would work with you if you say, hey, we want to pick our own investments. Like, we don't need you to do that because we have a very uncomplicated need for this. We just need a broad based index fund and we don't really need to pay you a percentage of that. However, could we come to you to create like a fee based plan? Say if another business opportunity comes up, or say like we want to get into real estate, or say we are 5 years out from retiring early and we need a drawdown strategy and we just want to purchase a plan from you, like a one-off, would you consider doing that? I wonder how open to that he might be. And would that be something that you might consider once you get closer to that time period where he's going to start taking the fee?
I think that's a great idea. I don't know if he would be open to it, but it never hurts to try. So I think that could be a really good option. I would hate to lose a good resource due to a failure of imagination. That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, pivoting to a different topic. Now that there is the baby, it has really been a time warp in so many ways. One of them being that the usual future oriented approach that we've taken to money and to FI, we feel jerked back into the present now. With a kid, this is it. These are the years. Not that life's going to be sad in our 50s and 60s. I think life will still be rich and wonderful then. But man, do I really want to enjoy the next 20 odd years? Once again, I don't want the next 20 odd years to be a failure of imagination when it comes to how we approach our finances. Are we scaling back on our investments, knowing that it's setting our time horizon for five farther off? When it comes to a lot of five folks like to do the sabbaticals and have nomadic seasons of their lives. I'm not opposed to a traditional, we live in one place and we do our thing, as long as it's a conscious choice that we're making. So I think that's another thing that I'm thinking about these days when it comes to FI is just how it looks in our new present.
Yeah, for sure. It's like these are your golden years. And I know
Mhm.
usually people use golden years for like your later years, but I'm using this as these are your like the years you're going to remember forever, like really
Yeah.
remember, because this is when your son is, you never get the time back when they're little babies. And I remember when my best friend, she just had a baby and she just turned 6 months. And I'm like, man, I remember when she's a little newborn, little baby newborn. And now she's massive because they're both very tall people. And so their child is tall. And so I'm like, God, she grew fast. And Ruthie, my friend, is like, I know. And it's going so fast. And I just wish time could slow down a little bit.
Mhm.
So I hear you on that. Thanks for listening to part 1 with Amanda today, y'all. Tune in next week for her second part, where we dive in deeper on her story. Thanks for listening to the EverydayFI podcast. If you're loving this show, here are some things you can do. Number 1, subscribe in your favorite podcast player and share the show with your friends and family. You can also find us on YouTube now. Some of the videos actually have our faces. Number 2, please leave a review. I am always looking for ways to improve the show. Number 3, check out my website, everyday-fi.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and leave comments for myself and the guest. Number 4, if you're interested in sharing your own financial independence story and connecting with other community members, you can find a submission form at everyday-fi.com/podcast. And lastly, number 5, join my Patreon membership for only $5 a month at patreon.com/everydayfi podcast. This is a one-woman show, so every little bit of support really helps. See you next time as we continue to go down the path to financial freedom.